Hi, my name is Patrick Kinney. I am the Chief of Legal Staff and Chief Paralegal at the Law Office of David L. Moffitt and Associates. Worked under David L. Moffitt, the late great David L. Moffitt, before he passed away, and now I work under Tamika L. Tucker, the managing attorney of the firm. I've been studying law and writing legal briefs for over 20 years, and I've worked on Donald Robinson's case since 2020 when he first hired David Moffitt. I've drafted all the briefs in his case for the Moffitt law firm, and I think Donald Robinson is innocent. The jury didn't get to hear the evidence of his innocence, the real evidence of his innocence, and it should have had that opportunity. And the reason it didn't is because of failures of his trial attorney, unprofessional failures that violated his constitutional right to the assistance of counsel. And that's what we've been arguing in the courts. And that's what we hope the courts will agree with us. And the latest brief that we're about to file in the Michigan Court of Appeals. Now, let me tell you about Mr. Robinson's case, exactly what the case is about, exactly what the prosecution's case was from a legal standpoint, and what his defense should have been. On March 27th, 2017, just before 10:02 p.m., police received a 911 call of shots fired. The shots were fired at Stewart Street in Warren in Michigan, and when they arrived, they found that Marcus Samuel was shot dead on the street in front of his house. He still had his wallet and his watch, expensive watch on him, and they found 40 caliber Tel Ammo brand ammunition casings on the ground. According to the officer in charge of the case, no physical evidence was ever found connecting Donald Robinson to this case. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, no surveillance video of Mr. Robinson there, and nothing was found on Mr. Robinson or in his possession or control that was in any way related to this case. There was no matching ammunition and no matching firearm brands that were found in this case. The only evidence they had against him was that just before the shooting occurred, Marcus Samuel made a 911 call because he was looking on his phone on his home security system. He had a Wi-Fi camera system that he could access on his phone, and he could see the videos in real time. He saw this girl he was talking to named Brittany Fulwiley in front of his door, and she was talking to somebody on the phone, and she said, "Just walk him in to where the cash is," or something along those lines. And he called 911 and said, "Hey, I think this woman is trying to rob me." And the 911 operator said, "Well, don't go home, just stay right there." But he went home, and he was shot and killed. Neighbors said that they saw a silver vehicle pull up and a woman driving it and yell to a man to get in the vehicle. And the basic description of the man, they couldn't identify who it was. They said the height and weight was a general matched Donald Robinson, a very basic general description. Black male, 5'9", slender. That was all they said. So the police investigated Brittany Fulwiley, and they found evidence that Brittany was calling Donald Robinson around the time that she was seen in this video. But there was also other phone calls to other people. There were other texts to other people. The police have never revealed or released the content of these text messages. It's routine in criminal cases that police will obtain the content of text messages and use those in trials to convict people. They haven't even released what those text messages were. Donald Robinson says, "I was just talking to Brittany about meeting up later to have a romantic encounter, and he said he has nothing to do with this shooting. The police initially thought that the silver car was Donald Robinson's because he owned a silver Dodge Charger. But then they found out, and they admitted this, that the GPS system in the car showed that it wasn't even driven that night. So the police, so the prosecutor, what they did at trial is they used the fact that Donald Robinson's mother or grandmother had a white Ford Fusion, and they said this is similar to the witness said that the silver car they saw was similar to their own Chevy Cruze, a silver Chevy Cruze. And they said, well, it must have been a white Ford Fusion. It was night, and they couldn't tell the color. That's what the prosecutor argued. All the evidence the prosecutor had was the fact that Donald Robinson was communicating with Phil Wiley at the time on his phone, and his phone pinged off a cell tower that was in the same sector as Marcus Samuel's house around the time of the crime. Donald Robinson's trial attorney presented what he called an alibi defense. An alibi defense is where it's impossible for the defendant to have been at the scene of the crime because it was somewhere else. Well, this crime occurred at just before 10:02 p.m. The prosecution presented a witness, Brittany Phil Wiley's mother, to show that Brittany and Donald Robinson were together right after the crime. And she did testify to that. She said that Brittany and Donald came to her house between 10 and 10:30 p.m. But that wasn't an alibi because the distance from her house, from the scene of the crime to her house, took less than half an hour to get there. And Donald Robinson's lawyer called his grandmother. His grandmother testified that Donald Robinson was with her at 9:30. But her house was only a 7-minute drive from the scene of the crime. So he could have been at his grandmother's house and at the scene of the crime at the same time. So even if the jury believed the defense that his lawyer put up based on Brittany's mother and Donald's grandmother, they still could have believed that he was at the scene of the crime. But Donald Robinson told his attorney before trial that he had an alibi witness named Jerry Young. And we know this because his trial attorney filed an alibi notice before trial listing Jerry Young as a witness. But he never called Jerry Young. There's no evidence that he ever spoke to Jerry Young. In fact, later on, after Donald was convicted and after his first appeal was denied, he finally got an affidavit from Jerry Young. He finally located him and was able to get an affidavit from him. And Jerry Young says no attorneys ever spoke to him. None of the attorneys ever spoke to him about the case. So that's our basic argument, is that Jerry Young provided an alibi, would have provided an alibi, because he said that Donald Robinson was with him until just after 10 p.m. Remember, the shooting occurred at just before 10:02 p.m. when the 911 call of shots fired came in. For Mr. Robinson to have gone from Jerry Young's house to the scene of the crime and just after 10 p.m. to just before 10:02 p.m. would have required him to drive 123 miles an hour, make 5 right turns and a U-turn, and so it was impossible. But the jury never heard that. The jury never heard his testimony. We presented that argument to his trial judge, Mr. Robinson's trial judge, in a motion for relief from judgment. The judge denied it. The judge said that his lawyer was reasonable for relying on Brittany's mother and Donald Robinson's grandmother, because Jerry Young's testimony would have conflicted with their testimony. And he's right that it would have conflicted with the grandmother's testimony, Donald Robinson's grandmother, because Young said he was with him until just after 10, and from 4 p.m. till just after 10, and Donald Robinson's grandmother said that he was with her at 9:30. But that only would have helped Donald Robinson. It was unreasonable for the lawyer to call the grandmother, who didn't provide an alibi, instead of Jerry Young, who would have provided an alibi. And the trial court got it wrong and said that Jerry Young's testimony would have conflicted with Brittany's mother. The trial judge said that Brittany's mother said that Donald Robinson was at her house just before 10 p.m., but she didn't. She never said that. So that's the basic case. The jury never heard this alibi witness, and there's other evidence that somebody else had a reason to kill Marcus Samuel. Marcus Samuel that the jury never heard. Marcus Samuel was acquitted of a charge of assault with intent to murder just 4 days before he was killed. So he was found not guilty and of trying to kill someone. And when he was found dead, nobody had taken anything from him. Nobody robbed him. All his valuables were still on him. So that suggests to me that it could have been a revenge killing. It could have been a vigilante justice. And we just think that Donald Robinson should have his day in court. We think in a civilized society, the role of the courts is to determine as best we can, within the limits of human fallibility, whether someone is guilty or innocent before we send them to prison for the rest of their life. And in doing that, we have to present all the evidence, all the relevant evidence. Mr. Robinson's trial attorney failed him. His appellate attorney failed him, and his first appellate attorney. And we hope that he'll finally get his day in court. He'll finally be exonerated, and justice will be done.
I truly don't believe people understand how innocent I am. Many people assume because a person is convicted of a crime, it actually means that they are guilty of a crime that they are accused of committing. This isn't always the case, and it's not my case at all. When it comes to how deficient my trial attorney, Mark Haddad, was, it's insane he's still able to still practice law. My main alibi witness, Jerry Young, is not someone new or made up. Like, my story has always been the same since day one. But it's important for the world to hear it from me. So let me explain how this notice of alibi witness came about. So in December 2017, a pretrial hearing was called by the trial judge. And this arose from me not ever speaking to my attorney, and trial was scheduled for the next month in January 2018. But back in November 2017, I wrote Mark Haddad a letter saying, I need to talk to you, I need you to come see me so I can explain to you that I'm innocent and that I wasn't there. He wrote me a letter back saying his time was better spent in office preparing for trial. So at this point, my mind was blown. Like, how can you prepare for a case and you never even spoke to me about my case? So my mother and I wrote a letter to the judge, and she called this pretrial hearing. So after arguing and going back and forth on the record, he asked the judge, can we talk in private in the courtroom holding cell? He asked me, what do I need from him for him to stay on the case? I told him I need him to go talk to my witnesses, and it's going to prove that I'm actually innocent. He said, okay. He told me to write down who I was with during the time in question and to write down all of the people who can testify to my whereabouts on the day of the incident. He typed it up on his computer. He filed it with the courts. He gave me a copy of it, and then I kept him as my attorney. But I need y'all to pay close attention to this witness list. He made me write down their name, their phone number, what city I was in with them. We can start from the bottom and then go up. So Khadisha is a woman I was in a relationship with in 2011. And the reason Clinton Township is next to her name is because we lived on 15 Mile and Harper, and this is where I woke up that morning. Jeremiah is my little cousin who I gave $40 to that morning before I arrived to my grandma's house. Arlie is my grandma and the house I arrived to that morning to meet Brittany that sex with her. Jerry Young is my friend, and I left from my grandmother's house in East Point to meet him at his mother's house in Detroit for a party. From there, I went to his house in Harper Woods, and I stayed at my homeboy's house waiting on Brittany to tell me where she was and where she wanted me to meet up again so we can have sex again later on that night. So, like, around 9:50ish, Brittany asked me where I was. I told her I was still on the east side at the time. She told me to leave out in about 10 minutes and meet her at her mama's house. And I did just that. Now, for people who are unfamiliar with my case, I don't want y'all to miss this crucial fact. Yes, Brittany's mother, Alicia Chiavani, did testify that me and her daughter arrived at her home shortly after this incident. However, the intimate details of how we arrived are the most important in my case. Brittany's mother testified that Brittany arrived to her house in her own car, alone, and I arrived shortly after her daughter in the blue Chevy Cobalt, alone. Not a silver car. We did not arrive together, nor did we drive together. We were coming from two totally separate locations. Furthermore, Brittany was not my girlfriend, how the prosecution made it records from Brandon Roy report proves that I only seen Brittany in the month of March like 2 times. And despite all this information, I told Mark, the dad, my trial attorney, and he still refused to even talk to my witnesses. I never told this man I was at my grandma's house that night. I told him everything I just explained, and he did what he wanted to do to help the prosecution convict me of a crime I didn't commit. I was uneducated on how the court process works. But if you're watching this video and you are accused of a crime you didn't commit, please speak up. And don't let nobody else tell your story for you, because your voice matters, and you need to set the record straight for yourself. Thank you.